Hello, my sweet daughters. This is the third shiur, pre-Shabbat shiur. I'm going to, as I said, try and keep it to 5 minutes so as to not burden you unnecessarily. It's 13 minutes to 2 o'clock in the morning in Cape Town. And, well, you know, I'm in my new routine, which is working quite well. Even the science is backing it up, which I'll tell you about when I see you, Claude. But anyway, I want to talk to you this week again about the Shabbat. I'm reading a book. I'm going to show you the title. It's called Forgotten Memoirs. It's a book written by Esther Farbstein. She collected all the memoirs of the rabbis that survived the Holocaust. So there are all these stories here. I mean, quite heartbreaking and just incredible to what lengths they went to still keep the mitzvot, even though they were being completely persecuted. I mean, the way they risked their lives, and a lot of them, you know, said that it saved their lives. A lot of them also said that, there were reasons why this was happening. That's not really what I'm speaking about. Anyway, there's one particular rabbi. Here he is Rabbi Yehoshua Yeshayahu Newith, who I recognized his name. He actually, I think he's still living, but I know I've seen books of his. And this is his story, and it's quite incredible. And I want to tell you about it because, I'll tell you quickly about it because he focused on one particular mitzvah. And what's amazing about this rabbi and his family is that the entire family survived. They escaped from Germany. They went to Belgium, and then they went to Amsterdam, and they managed to live in an abandoned flat and not be discovered, literally for 3 years. Even though there were, people in their streets were being taken and all the buildings were being searched, somehow, I mean, there was a time when they hid in an attic in some of the houses next door, but eventually they moved down from the attic and stayed for 3 years in this flat. It kind of reminded me of COVID, although this was much worse. But basically, they could not leave the flat. They stayed in there for 3 years, and they couldn't even go to the window. And the Dutch underground would send them food, a little bit of food. There wasn't much. They were really always hungry, but it helped them survive. But anyway, so this is this rabbi's story. His father, by the way, before the war, published a book on Shabbat, on the laws of Shabbat. So he had a particular connection to Shabbat, obviously through his father. But this is what he says. I'm going to read to you a few things. So there were 4 brothers and a sister. The one brother, unfortunately, was studying in a yeshiva, I think in France, and he got caught and he died. But the other 3 brothers survived, and so did the sister. So he says, my father tried to enable my sister. So now this is this rabbi talking, but he's now talking about his father, who, this guy was a youngster. He was, I think he just had a bar mitzvah. So he was a young guy when this was happening. So my father tried to enable my sister to survive. So as I said, the sister had Aryan looks. She didn't look Jewish. So she actually used to go around looking for food, and she got work and earn money and help the family that way. So my father tried to enable my sister to survive by sending her to work as a housekeeper for a Dutch family. Since she had an Aryan appearance, she could circulate among non-Jews freely. The reasoning was that if the worst happened to us, at least one member of our family would survive. She worked in the home of a judge of the Dutch Supreme Court. She wrote to my parents complaining that she had to work hardest on Shabbat because, given that they assumed that she was a non-Jew, she had to help to prepare for Sunday, which was when they took a day of rest. After a few weeks, father decided to bring her back home, despite the fact that in the judge's home she was safer, the word safer is in inverted commas, and had more plentiful food. Nevertheless, because of the Shabbat desecration, she could not continue there. And one Friday, she returned to stay with us. On Sunday, we heard that the home of the family where she had been working got a direct hit from an aerial bombing, and the entire family was killed. And then he gives another example. He says, another incident where Shabbat observance had a protective effect involved my father. So this had to do with taking medicine And the medicine he felt tasted bitter, so because you're not allowed to take bitter things on Shabbat, because you're meant to have on next Shabbat, he decided not to take it. And it turns out that the medicine was incorrectly labeled. It was actually poison. So it then says, here's a note. As explained in the introductory material to this preface, Rabbi Aaron Nurith, father of the author, had a special connection to the mitzvah of Shabbat. And in his only book about the Shabbat, Yisrael Shabbato, okay, he has got all the S's, like the Ashkenazi producer. I just added the T's instead of the S's. Published in Jerusalem in 1964. In his book, he connects between the Nazis' closing of Jewish stores and the desecration of Shabbat by some of those very stores which were open for business on Shabbat. And then he goes on to say it, but he definitely made a connection there. And he talks about today. He says in Israel today with the Arabs, this mitzvah is a mitzvah that literally saves Jewish lives. Should we not be, he says here, today the people in the state of Israel are endangered on the one hand by Arab countries and on the other hand by the prospect of a world war that threatens other nations as well as Israel. Is it not wise that Israel will take seriously what the Prophet said about driving out dangers? The way Judaism survived during thousands of perilous years of life-threatening dangers was through the Shabbat. Do we not have leaders responsible enough to return to this life-giving potion, whose efficacy has been proven? And so on and so forth. One more example, and then I'll finish with this. I marked it here. Okay, the only time that, in fact, this rabbi desecrated the Shabbat, he did it once, was when he was traveling to Israel from Europe, and he was in Marseille, and they had to board they were taking one of these clandestine ships to get into Israel. He was interned in a British camp, British concentration camp. Can you believe it? When they arrived in Israel. But anyway, the people that were commandeering said that they must board then, and he eventually did board, although he resisted, and he felt he was risking his life, and it was the only time he desecrated it. So he says, here that when he arrived in Israel, he basically had a choice to make. What was he going to do? So he decided he was going to learn Torah. He spoke to his father and said, "Look, they want me to work, but I want to learn Torah. What should I do?" And his father said to him, "Look, we survived for 5 years in Holland because of Shabbat and because of Torah. Go and learn Torah and don't work," which he did, and it was fine. In fact, he managed to do very well. But he says, but one of his projects that he undertook was to continue in the tradition of his father and publish a book. And I've seen this book. It's a very successful book on Shabbat. And it says in one of the notes, Rabbi Newith had said that he views his efforts to strengthen Shabbat observance as one of the means to atone for the times when he was forced to desecrate the Shabbat. So it says times, but according to what is written here, that there was only one time. Also, this rabbi, quickly, I just want to tell you, he actually devised the calendar using the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which he had one copy of, and he actually devised a calendar, a Hebrew and Gregorian calendar, which, there are pictures of it here, which was accurate. So, because obviously they had to know when Shabbat was and when the Chagim were. An incredible story. But the reason I'm telling you this story is I just want you to just please don't give up on the Shabbat. Never take the Shabbat seriously. It really does protect the Jewish people, and we've survived because of the Shabbat. And we've always been very careful about it here, and I just wish and pray and hope and advise you, and that you keep the Shabbat and never forsake it. Shabbat Shalom, and I hope that you enjoyed. Unfortunately, it's again almost 10 minutes, but 10 minutes is better than 11 minutes or 12 minutes or 15 minutes. Bye.